Mouseketeers, welcome to the Disneyland Beat, where our toes tap to a Disneyland drum.
And we always whistle while we work.
Today, we're going to head into Disneyland Park to take a ride on all the current attractions that are not based on movies or media of any kind.
It's hard to argue that as Disney has created new attractions in recent decades, most of them have been based on Disney movies and shows we know and love, Disney intellectual properties, or IPs.
But earlier decades at Disneyland saw the creation of many original rides and attractions.
Let's go check them out as we discuss the media that influenced them or that they themselves inspired.
Let's go into the parks.
Like, subscribe, and stick around.
When Disneyland opened, with little exception, most of the rides based on Disney movies and television programs could be found in Fantasyland.
Peter Pan, Snow White, Casey Jones, and even the Mickey and Friends characters were found there.
And while Davy Crockett was a big part of Frontierland, the attractions, a beautiful riverboat, and a mule pack ride through a creatively designed desert were much more ubiquitous and original.
Adventureland housed an original ride that is still beloved and popular today, the Jungle Cruise.
This ride, and the whole land really, are loosely based on a Disney True Life Adventure series though, some of the first nature documentaries ever made.
Disney had just gotten into live-action films in 1948, only 7 years before Disneyland would open its gates and when the idea for the park was in its infancy.
But outside of the idea of exploration, travel, and adventure, the Jungle Cruise is not based on any specific movie or intellectual property.
The perfectly timed ride is still one of the best. It is still a masterclass in attraction timing, sightlines, and storytelling.
And it has a unique jungle that has grown up around it, theming the land in something that other parks just strive to copy.
The Jungle Cruise awaits its first movie treatment with the new version starring The Rock and Emily Blunt having its opening date pushed back.
We think the previews show a film that draws from the classic African Queen, but also maybe just because of The Rock, it looks to feel a bit like the recent Jumanji films.
And only time will tell if the movie will then affect the ride, which will likely see future refurbishments at some point.
We always start our Disneyland day in Adventureland. How about you folks?
Well, let's make our way out to New Orleans Square to visit what might be the most famous and influential original attractions at Disneyland.
Pirates of the Caribbean opened in 1967 as a completely original creation and one that changed the theme park ride industry forever, and for the better.
Talk about putting a lot of resources into an original story.
Imagineer Mark Davis, who created the renderings that set up the scenes of the ride, and Imagineer Exitencio, who wrote the famous script, created something close to a theme park masterpiece.
The ride is completely immersive and notably lengthy, allowing a fascinating experiential story to develop.
And there are layers to the world so you get different experiences every time you ride, depending on what you decide to pay attention to.
The exaggerated world is rooted in realism, yet fantastic and specifically stylized.
We think it is easy to see why the famous attraction inspired such a successful movie series, with 5 blockbusters released so far, and another reboot really can't be that far away, right?
The first Pirates of the Caribbean movie was full of scenes staged directly like the ride that was over 30 years old by that time.
And, in a chicken and the egg kind of thing, the movies began to change the ride that it was based upon.
Jack Sparrow was a hit, and within 3 years, Disney moved to incorporate him into the ride.
So in 2006, Jack Sparrow became a huge part of the ride. He's now part of the story as its main character with multiple appearances throughout. And then they just kept adding parts of the movie and additional characters to the ride over the years.
Only recently, with the 2016 renovation, have they pulled back. Those changes focused more on the liberation of Pirate Red, but made other changes too.
They removed a projected effect showing the villain Davy Jones and added in a much more effective scene in keeping with the original ride's intention too. It ties together the skeleton pirates of the present with the alive pirates of the past.
And the new scene with Pirate Red has brought us a new original park character, which we think is awesome.
But we predict that it won't be long before we'll be seeing a Pirate Red movie.
And we can't wait.
Across the Garden District from Pirates of the Caribbean is another Disneyland famous original attraction.
The Haunted Mansion!
And the Haunted Mansion really stands out to us too, not only for its popularity, but for its far-reaching complex backstories and written tales. It really had a lot of influence on Disneyland Paris and Hong Kong Disneyland.
Disneyland rejuvenated what a haunted house ride was with its wonderful story and whimsical characters conjuring up spirits for us to marvel at.
Like Pirates of the Caribbean, the ride succeeds in creating an immersive world that is recognizable, fun, and it sustains your interest.
Unlike Pirates, the film that the ride produced was much more forgettable and not a massive hit, nor really set up to create a franchise.
And that doesn't mean that we don't expect there to be another Haunted Mansion film in the future.
But that has meant that the movie has very little influence on the ride itself, and the mansion has been allowed to develop as one of Disney's best original rides, which in this case is for the best.
That is, except for around the holidays. Hey there, Jack.
As we head over to Frontierland, we want to take a second to give a shout out to Galaxy's Edge and something we think the Imagineers got right.
Galaxy's Edge is of course based on Star Wars, but the attractions are fantastic and in their own way, very original.
There are two ways to approach an IP when making a ride. You can try to recreate the film itself and basically retell the story, allowing the guests to experience those familiar scenes in a more visceral way.
Good examples of this at Disneyland are Pinocchio's Daring Adventure, Ariel's Undersea Journey, Winnie the Pooh, Peter Pan's Flight, Snow White's Scary Adventures, and Monsters, Inc. Mike and Sully to the Rescue.
We love all these rides. Everyone, you get to step into familiar scenes from favorite films with characters you adore.
And it tells a story that you love, but one that you already know the ending to.
Another approach is to take the world out of the IP and tell a new story within that world.
And Galaxy's Edge attractions do this, even though it's taken criticism for not recreating the original universe.
In Rise of the Resistance, you actually get to play the role of a Resistance spy. You don't just ride around watching recreations of scenes from the movie. It's a new story happening to you. It's really amazing and fun.
And Smuggler's Run is the same thing. They succeeded in taking this hunk of junk that we all love and they made it real and relevant again, engaging us as crew members to have our own original Star Wars adventure now.
There are other Disney rides that are inspired heavily by intellectual property, yet strive to tell their own story based on that world.
And we think Mr. Toad's Wild Ride is an opening day example of this type of thing, creating a fun original experience without copying the movie scene by scene.
And a more modern example would be the Indiana Jones adventure, where instead of retelling Raiders of the Lost Ark, we go on a totally unique and thrilling adventure with Indy.
So a huge nod to all those IP-based attractions that still have an original take.
And as we arrive in Frontierland, we can catch up with the wildest ride in the wilderness.
Big Thunder Mountain Railroad tells the original story of a western mine that dug too deep, disturbing the land's inhabitants.
And even the mountain itself.
And it is one of the few attractions at Disneyland, along with some other coasters that are not based on a movie, nor ever to really inspire one.
At least one that we know of.
It does homage the attraction that preceded it, Nature's Mine Train Through Wonderland.
With its painted desert and rainbow caverns.
And it has been one of the most popular attractions at the park since the day it opened.
What a great ride! But now let's head into Fantasyland for its iconic original ride, It's a Small World.
Imagineer Mary Blair was the lead designer behind this original attraction that broke ground for its motion and spectacle, as well as integrating ride sound and musical composition.
The charming ride that debuted at the 1964 World's Fair before coming home to Disneyland in its full glory has become a national phenomenon.
And we highly recommend you listen closely to the lyrics of the Sherman Brothers song.
There is just one moon and one golden sun, and a smile means friendship to everyone.
Though the mountains divide and the oceans are wide, it's a small world after all.
Sending a message of peace? Pretty cool theme for an original ride.
But it's worth noting that the Disneyland version has been incorporating doll versions of popular IPs in it for a while now, tying the ride into lots of Disney movies.
Another original ride we truly love is 1969's Matterhorn bobsleds.
The ride was inspired by the Matterhorn Mountain itself, viewed by Walt while filming the live-action movie Third Man on the Mountain.
The original version of the ride was basically a roller coaster inside a mountain.
But refurbishment in the 70s added much more story to the ride, including a lost expedition being thwarted by a huge Yeti from whom you narrowly escape.
And like Big Thunder, that is an original story that has yet to be told by Disney in any film, and while we've heard rumors over it happening over the years, there has never been an official announcement of any kind of Matterhorn film.
And after all, the title of that film might just be Expedition Everest.
When AUTOPIA opened, a small car ride was nothing new to amusement parks.
But having it themed to the interstate highways of America was. President Eisenhower had yet to announce his plans for the national road system to the public yet.
And as Disney installed similar attractions in 5 different parks around the world, they've all been originally themed.
And recently, we think it has become even more interesting with the adventures of Asimo and his birds seen throughout the ride.
As we make our way to the other side of Tomorrowland, we pass by buildings that used to house original attractions like the Carousel of Progress and Mission to Mars.
But we love that we still get to head to an original ride that has acted as the anchor of the land since it opened in 1977, Space Mountain.
The awesome indoor roller coaster did open at Walt Disney World first.
But Disneyland's version is unique with its triple lift hill and wonderful original soundtrack.
And people are always inspired by their thrilling rides through the stars.
And as far as we know, there has never been talk of a Space Mountain movie.
Well, what a fun day and what a wonderful attraction to have at Disneyland as we head back to the Esplanade. We consider the future of the original rides at the park.
It seems that Disney is often reaching for an IP when creating new lands and attractions these days, and it's not hard to see why when they can guarantee the ride international appeal, and it must be much less risky.
Immersive lands like Harry Potter have also changed the game, bringing movies to life in a way that we've never seen before.
And when it comes to Disney intellectual properties, there's so many that I would love to be seen made into rides, and there's just so many to choose from now.
And it seems like when Imagineers have an idea for a ride, all they have to do is seek out the IP that fits the attraction and the land the best.
And they do it well. More often than not, they are telling new stories with familiar and established characters that we already love, and the attractions effectively add to those canons.
But if you wanted to look for the most recent Disney ride in the United States that had completely an original story from scratch, it was probably Animal Kingdom's Expedition Everest in 2006.
And in Disney's California Adventure, there is Grizzly River Run and Soaring, which are both amazing original attractions that opened in 2001.
But at Disneyland itself, please correct us in the comments if we are wrong, but you probably have to go back to the 90s and look at some now defunct attractions and attractions that never, quote, made it.
Like maybe the Rocket Rods and the rest of the Tomorrowland 2055 rides that never happened because there were budget cuts because of Disneyland Paris's difficult opening.
Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, though not a completely original ride, feels like one with its cute take on the Mickey Mouse Shorts IPs, which we love, by the way.
And we are really looking forward to having that ride here at Mickey's Toontown.
We love you, Mickey!
But still, we really hope that there are more attractions in store for Disneyland that are based on original stories that are unique to Disneyland.
We think the stories that create attractions that can only be experienced at the theme parks themselves seem to take root and grow over time, becoming the most beloved rides of all.
They add to the legends and myths of the park, creating stories you simply cannot get at a movie theater or in a book,
making them special and unique.
And to us, they're more real somehow. They're real places that I'm experiencing for the first time and that my imagination has really helped to bring to life.
They are full of surprises and the unexpected.
And we think that is pretty magical.
Well, that's it for today.
We appreciate you watching, and we invite you to please come join the Disneyland Beat family.
And we hope you find some Disneyland in your everyday.
See you real soon, Mouseketeers.
See you real soon.